Okay, today's video is for living environment, and we are going to start talking about the endocrine system. So we're moving into a little bit of the human body, and the first system that we want to talk about is the endocrine system. So our essential question is, how does the endocrine system work to protect and benefit the body? And our learning target, we only have one, is I can explain how negative feedback regulates hormonal secretion. So I'm going to move this out of the way so that we can look at the PowerPoint that I have linked to your Google Classroom. And today we're only going to look at slides 1 through 5. So this is our first slide, and it's actually showing one of the glands that we're actually not going to cover in the endocrine system. But if you look at this next slide, you can see that there are a ton of endocrine glands. And the one that we're really going to focus on and talk about is the pancreas, which is basically has a dual role. You might have heard about it in the digestive system, and it does help with the digestion of our food. It's what we call an accessory organ, so the food doesn't actually pass through that gland, but the juices are secreted, pancreatic juices, into the small intestine to help with digestion. But for our purpose, when we talk about the endocrine system and living environment, we're just going to focus on the pancreas. But before we can get to all of that, there is that picture of just showing you all of the different glands that we have. And now I just want to move on to, and I think you could see me holding up the phone in the reflection here. And I just want to read through a couple of these slides. And this one says, chemical regulation is the control and the coordination of the various life activities within an organism using chemical messengers called hormones. So we are going to talk about hormones. They are chemical messengers that are secreted directly into the blood. If we look at chemical control in animals, special endocrine glands synthesize and secrete, which means release, hormones via the endocrine system. And then we have this picture down here that shows what an endocrine gland or cell looks like, how it secretes the hormone into the blood. So the circulatory system is involved in this. And then that particular hormone, which has a particular shape, is going to find its way to a target tissue, or we can also call it a target cell, and it'll do basically a lock and key, and it'll hook up with hormone receptors. If I go to the next slide, hormones are chemicals secreted in one area of an organism which affect responses in another area. So they do travel through the blood, they're secreted from one gland, but they'll go and to what we call a target tissue, which is in a totally different area of the body. They are dependent on the circulatory system because it aids in the disruption or the distribution of hormones throughout an organism. Hormones control metabolic activities. They're involved in reproduction. They're involved in metamorphosis, which you may have learned about metamorphosis, or you may remember from last year with me, that is when the organisms, some of them go from adult to, or egg to adult, and you could see that in the picture of the caterpillar going to the butterfly and so on. But we're not going to really talk about that for this topic because we're going to stick with human endocrine system. Okay, and then this next slide is the last one that I wanted to talk about for today. And this is just some important vocab. So we definitely want to know what a hormone is. And a hormone is considered to be chemical messengers that are transported throughout the body via the bloodstream. And they're going to go into the plasma. I think you've done circulatory system in health, and you should know that there's 4 components of blood. One of them plasma, one of them red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets are the other 3. Gland is responsible for synthesizing and secreting the hormones in the bloodstream. And here is a picture of those glands, again, that are all going to be responsible for secreting a hormone. Some of them secrete more than one hormone. And then we look at a target organ, and this is going to be also known as a target tissue. It's an organ that is affected by these hormones. So the hormone will be secreted into the blood, and it'll find its way to the target tissue or the target organ, and it'll do what we like to call lock and key. All right, that is all I wanted to talk about for today.